everyone present here, let the 29th of November, which is the Day of International Solidarity with Palestine, not pass us as if we don't know the journey we began today, how significant it is. Let this gathering be the torch that will speak the truth that only South Africans can speak. South Africans are the moral conscience of this world, no matter what is happening at the Madlanga Commission. So we want to clarify the theological foundations surrounding Israel and Palestine, and I know Professor Denis is going to do that well. Let me also pause and say, even when you think about who is really a Jew, how many of us know that we have Jews right here in South Africa, in Venda? Think about it. Here in South Africa. And where are they in this discourse? Ask yourself how the Jews from Ethiopia are treated in Palestine, in Israel. We'll come back to those issues. We want to examine the historical developments today that shape this conflict, analyze the strategic failures that perpetuated violence, and propose practical recommendations towards a sustainable peace. Let me try to glance at the theological foundations which will be expounded for by our respondents later. The land known historically as Canaan, Judea, Israel, and Palestine occupies sacred importance in the three Abrahamic faiths, which we all know: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And when sometimes Palestinians are accused of being anti-Semitic, you actually wonder, what is the story? Judaism and the covenant narrative. We all know that within Judaism, the land of Israel is linked to the covenant between God and Abraham, described in the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. Jewish historical consciousness includes the kingdoms of Israel and Judah, the first and second temples in Jerusalem, exile and diaspora following Roman occupation, and centuries of longing for return. This common theme to return, two opposing narratives. For many Jews, modern Israel represents not merely a political state, but the restoration of historical continuity after centuries of persecution, culminating in the Holocaust. And I also want us to pause, colleagues, and ask ourselves, when are we going to see the total liberation of German theology, which is always hampered by the mistakes of Hitler? Until the Germans themselves can be free from that, we are also not going very far in resolving this issue, because there's a very important point to add in this conversation. However, theological interpretation within Judaism itself is diverse. Not all Jewish traditions historically supported political Zionism, and many debated whether restoration should be spiritual or political. The Christianity that we know in competing interpretations we inherited was part of the Christian faith. Much of our theological geography from Judaism itself. We cannot deny it. Yet Christians differ themselves sharply on the meaning of modern Israel. Oh, we love to go to heaven. I don't know how many want to take with to heaven. Or it's only our sacred place, I don't know. Some Christian groups, particularly Christian Zionists, who are so present today, interpret biblical prophecy as supporting the restoration of Israel as fulfillment of Scripture. Others emphasize justice, reconciliation, human dignity, and equal value of all peoples for God. Many Palestinian Christians, where this faith began, argue that biblical promises should never be used to justify dispossession, occupation, or inequality. When I lived in Palestine, my host, Munir Kassis, would sit with me smoking argila, and he will tell me stories of how he enjoyed listening to his grandfather and his father reading the Bible. And the story that he used to love was this young David, who killed this giant whose name was Goliath. And he says to me, you know, in Arabic, when we say Palestine, we mean Palestine. So now that I'm old, I realize that, no, this David is actually the present Israel. And this Goliath is actually me. And he asked a simple question, what kind of God is this who promised other people my land? Pause and think how you could answer that question. Thus, theology becomes dangerous when selectively weaponized to legitimize domination while ignoring moral obligations towards peace and human dignity. To our Islam brothers and sisters, they also have a sacred geography in Palestine. In Islam, Jerusalem, particularly the Al-Aqsa Mosque, is among the holiest sites. I think the third most holy, if I'm not mistaken, in Islam, and is associated with Prophet Muhammad's 9th journey. Oh, I long that one day you can go there and see how beautiful that art is. For Muslims, Palestine became part of Islamic civilization for centuries under various caliphates and empires. And the understanding of Islam of justice strongly opposes forced displacement. Let us not listen to these other narratives: oppression, collective punishment, and denial of human rights. Thus, the Palestinian issue became not only national, but symbolic across the Muslim world. And I'm very glad we have the presence of our Islam brothers and sisters here. Quickly looking at these historical developments that shape the conflict. To understand today's crisis, we must move beyond emotional rhetoric and examine the timeline strategy. I've given you insight. The Ottoman era. Before the 20th century, Palestine existed under the Ottoman Empire for centuries with Muslims, Christians, and Jewish communities coexisting in varying forms. The grandmother, the mother of Rifat Kassis, who trained me in Palestine, used to say to me in Arabic, I cannot speak Arabic. They would translate for me, and she enjoyed having conversations. She says, you know, Palestinians are like a donkey. Everyone has ridden this body, this donkey. Imbongo. So identity at the time was less nationalistic and more communal and religious. Let us look quickly at the rise of Zionism. In the late 19th century, political Zionism emerged in Europe amid rising anti-Semitism, pogroms, nationalist movements across Europe. This was led prominently by Theodor Herzl. Zionism advocated for a Jewish homeland. At the same time, Arab nationalism was also rising in response to collapsing empires and European colonial influence. This created two competing national movements claiming the same land. You build your own home in Tonga, and someone comes one day, visits you, you give them food, you wake up in the morning, you live in the toilet that you built, they've taken your entire house. This is what happens to Palestinians. Who can forget the famous Balfour Declaration and the British Mandate? And you pause and you ask yourself, what is the peace board all about? Who is there? I just start. In 1917, more than a century, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration supporting a Jewish national home in Palestine, while also promising protection of non-Jewish communities. This contradictory policy sowed the seeds of future conflict. Under the British Mandate rule, Jewish immigration increased. Arab fears intensified. Violence escalated. Oh, Amangis, you, English people. Okay, God is watching. This state was created in 1948. It was established, and it continues to grow in leaps and bounds. Lands continue to be confiscated as I speak now. Did you ever know that there will come a time when Christmas is cancelled? Do you remember? Jesus under the rubber. Do you remember those things? When Munta Isaac, he will come here one day, said, we are now tired of this hypocrisy. If you are with us, you are with us. If you are not with us, you are not with us. I'm paraphrasing him. He went on viral on TikTok. So when Palestinians today are remembering the Nakba, for the Israelis, it is independence. It is survival of centuries of persecution. But for Palestinians, it is mass displacement. Palestinians all over the world, not by choice, not by design. Refugee camps, loss of homes and land, which we know very well here in South Africa. Two historical truths emerged simultaneously. They achieved their statehood, and as we heard from the Bishop Ubaba Umiyaga, Palestinians experienced dispossession and statelessness. Mit Rahab would say, if you know a Swiss cheese, Nyaya's Swiss cheese, you know those rounds. The Palestinian supposed state is supposed to happen out of those rounds in that Swiss cheese. What state can you have? No prospects of a Palestinian state. Peace remains impossible unless both realities are acknowledged honestly. That deadly 1967 war and occupation, the Six-Day War, dramatically altered the strategic landscape. Israel captured the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, the Sinai Peninsula. Is it still really about the Promised Land? Answer that question at some point. This began the modern occupation era that remains central to the conflict that we continue to witness every day. Settlement expansion, security barriers, checkpoints, militancy, rocket attacks, terrorism, military operations, and cycles of retaliation hardened divisions over decades. Let us also look at the strategic failures that prolonged the conflict. One of it is failure of leadership. Professor Smang has worked a lot on these issues. Can those be infused in how we also engage this issue? Extremists on both sides benefited politically from fear. The fear is a big factor there. Yet the resistance of the Palestinians continues to surprise all of us in the world who care to watch. Moderates were weakened, while hardliners gain influence through trauma, religious absolutism, nationalism, and revenge politics. Let me walk slowly. Weaponization of religion. Sacred texts became political weapons rather than moral guides. No one needs to teach South Africa how this game is played. We have seen this movie before. Religion should have been used to promote coexistence, encourage justice, promote civilians, protect civilians. Instead, selective theology often intensified conflict. Let me pause again and walk slowly with you. Aren't we witnessing international double standards? Global powers frequently approach the conflict selectively based on geopolitical interests, energy politics. That is what is happening in Gaza. Domestic electoral consideration, strategic alliances, at the expense of the people of the land. This eroded trust in international mediation. And for some moment we must pause and say, God, with all our imperfections, that bravery of going to The Hague, oh my God. Those are some of the things that might save the ANC in the future. Cycles of collective trauma. This is really bad. Israel's society carries deep trauma. Let us acknowledge that from anti-Semitism. It's true. Terror attacks. It's true. Regional hostility is true. Historical persecution is true. But does it justify them recycling the whole thing on innocent people of Palestine? Palestinians also carry trauma from displacement. If you displace me from my home and you take me very far, how do you expect me to forget where I come from? Occupation, statelessness, civilian casualties, economic restrictions. I'm drawing towards a closure. Trauma without reconciliation reproduces future violence. Imagine the young man, the young girl who emerged from the rubbles of Gaza. When they are grown up, we are not addressing this issue. What is going to continue to happen in that land? I want to propose some strategic recommendations towards the resolution. I'm drawing to a close. I didn't only call to Tugo here. I also called my other comrade board. Can please get? We met in Palestine.
Okay.
Yeah, we met in Palestine. She will say more also as we engage here. And her son is now at university, a young boy from Gaza. These are people who have lived and seen what is happening there. They're not just reading newspapers. They've been there. This is the first recommendation that I want to make, which we can explore together. Recognition of mutual humanity. Singabantu, umuntu nomuntu ngabantu. Both Israelis and Palestinians must recognize the following aspects. Each other's historical pain, national identity, right to dignity, right to security, right to self-determination, the right of freedom. How many know that the beautiful Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv was once a Palestinian village? Dehumanization for people, mass. Secondly, immediate protection of civilians. Internationally supervised mechanisms should prioritize the following aspects: protection of civilians, humanitarian access, ceasefire monitoring, prisoner and hostage negotiations, reconstruction support. Children should never, ever become instruments of political welfare. The third strategic recommendation: revival of credible diplomacy. A serious diplomatic framework must involve, amongst others, the following issues: regional powers, neutral mediators, civil society, religious leaders, economic stakeholders. So even our meeting here is part of that. Peace processes fail when they exclude affected populations. Fourthly, address core final status issues. No peace agreement can avoid borders, Jerusalem, refugees, settlements, security guarantees, sovereignty arrangements. These issues, colleagues, require negotiated compromise, not unilateral imposition. Number 5, economic integration and development. Economic desperation fuels instability. A long-term peace architecture should include joint infrastructure projects, water sharing agreements, trade corridors, energy partnerships, technology cooperation, regional development banks. Economic interdependence can reduce incentives of war. Number 6, religious reconciliation forums. Faith leaders must become peace builders rather than political amplifiers. Interfaith councils, including what we are doing here, should involve rabbis, imams, priests, scholars, community leaders, etc. Should establish a theological framework that rejects ethnic supremacy, religious hatred, and collective punishment. Number 7, counter extremism on all sides. Violence against civilians, whether state-based or non-state, must be condemned consistently. Selective morality destroys credibility. A sustainable peace requires confronting terrorism, incitement, racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and extremist nationalism. Number 8, a general peace. Number, this conflict cannot be solved solely through military arrangements. Peace must be cultivated through education reform, shared historical dialogue, cultural exchange, youth diplomacy, trauma healing, digital counter-disinformation campaigns. Future generations must inherit coexistence rather than inherited hatred. The Israel-Palestine conflict is not simply a territorial dispute. It is a collision of history, historical memory, sacred identity, national aspirations, security fears, and unresolved injustice. But history also teaches us something important. Conflicts, once considered impossible to solve, have eventually yielded to courage, diplomacy, and moral imagination. Peace will require truth without denial, justice without revenge, security without domination, faith without extremism, and leadership without hatred. The land that is sacred to billions should not become a permanent graveyard for reconciliation. The challenge before humanity is not deciding whose suffering matters more. The challenge is building a future where neither Israelis nor Palestinians must continue bearing generations in the name of history. I want to say as I sit down, you are the salt of the world. You are the light of the world. Blessed blessed, blessed, blessed are the peacemakers. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. Psalm 127 verse 1 says,
Eminent leaders, without further ado, we have run out of time. We really apologize, Hafiz. I was hoping that by 20 past, you would be on the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, with the powers invested in us as program directors, kindly allow us to amend the program slightly. Professor Kumalo, I understand that we had briefed you that you'd be facilitating the session of responses. Another amendment would be that we are requesting you to please rather do the plenary discussions and questions and answers session, so that's where you'll facilitate. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we just want to go straight on to the respondents. I know that on the program we said the first respondent would be Prof. Denis, but because of time, and I understand Hafez has to leave by 11:45, so now we have literally 10 minutes to go. Please can I invite you to the podium? Thank you, sir. Okay, sorry. As you can see on the program, Hafez Saeed will just be sharing on it the experiences from the Islamic perspective. Thank you.
Good morning to one and all, and to our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Solomosi. I'm quite sure you had visited me at our school together with our friend here in the front, and he had given us some. Solomosi's talk was very, very inspiring, very, very interesting, and exactly what we all experience in Palestine is already shared that much of it. So I will not touch on that topic at all. What I would like to expand on is this, that you see Dr. Solomosi explained certain aspects on double standards. And if you look at it today, double standards in the world, unfortunately, has raised its ugly head. I will speak about it from a Muslim perspective. Islam as a religion is based on two things. One is the religious scripture, which is the Quran, as well as the prophetic tradition, which is known as the Hadith. Prophet Muhammad has said that in Islam there is no place for oppression. And he has mentioned that there are three types of oppressors in the world. One is the oppressor himself. The second one is the one who helps the oppressor to oppress. And the third one is the one who sees oppression and does nothing about it. So Islam is based on that. Then we come to the Holy Quran. Almighty says in the Holy Quran that we have made you in different nations, in different race groups, in different languages. Not that you must despise each other, but you can recognize each other. So based on these two things, I've shaped my life, entire life. Well, I don't know whether to say it was fortunate or unfortunate, but I grew up during the apartheid era in South Africa. And we were very heavily involved in the student boycotts of the 1980s. And if you look at it, like take the life of Maulvi Kachalia. Where did Maulvi Kachalia learn that inspiration to fight against oppression? He learned it in his theological school, which he had come from India and Pakistan. Similarly, the question that we all need to ask is this, that if you study history, you will see and you will realize that nowhere in the world Islam or Muslims have started a war. Like our Dr. Solomosi was speaking about genocide. Here in our own continent, Dr. Solomosi spoke about the Nazi genocide. Who did the genocide in Namibia? Who started World War I? Who started World War II? Who dropped the bomb on Nagasaki? So respected friends, Jerusalem is extremely dear to us also. Almighty mentions in the Quran, and I will say it in Arabic, and thereafter I will give the English translation. Almighty says in the Quran, قال إني عبد الله آتاني الكتاب وجعلني نبيا وجعلني مباركا أينما كنت وأوصاني بالصلاة والزكاة ما دمت حيا. This story relates to Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, who the Christians refer to Jesus Christ. When his mother, Maryam or Mary, became pregnant, so in Jerusalem, they asked her, what is this? Well, his birth was miraculous. As Muslims, we believe that his birth was miraculous. And because they couldn't understand that how a woman became pregnant without being married, without a husband, so eventually she left Jerusalem and went away to Bethlehem. When she came to Bethlehem and she gave birth there, where the Church of Nativity is currently, after giving birth she felt weak. This entire story is mentioned in the Quran. She felt weak. And Almighty told her that way under the tree that you are taking shade, shake that tree, you will get some fruit, eat that fruit, and you will feel some strength. And when she shook the tree and the fruit fell, she ate was dates, what we call kajur. She got strength and she came into Jerusalem. When she came to Jerusalem, she had Isa alayhi salam, who the Christians refer to as Christ, in her hand. The people asked her, what's this? So she said, don't ask me, ask him. Don't ask me, ask him. And at that time, he was a newborn baby, a small baby, and he spoke. Qala inni Abdullah. I am the servant of Almighty. Qala inni Abdullah. Atani al-kitab, who has revealed the book. Waja'alani nabiyya, and has made me a prophet. Mubarakan aynama kuntu, and has blessed me. Wa awsani, that same Lord who has made prayers compulsory. Wa zakati, that same Lord who has made charity compulsory. Ma dumtu hayya, my mother is pure. So the Quran clarifies this entire episode of Isa alayhi salam already read. So besides the Al-Aqsa Mosque, besides where the Prophet Muhammad went on the journey to the seven heavens, we also believe that the mountain from which Isa alayhi salam was raised to the heavens is also in Jerusalem. So there are many, many contexts with which, besides the Al-Aqsa Mosque, that Muslims relate to. So therefore, we believe that the issue of Palestine, besides being a religious issue, is also a moral issue. Because there is no Islam without justice. There is no Islam without human rights. There is no Islam without social justice. To such an extent that many of the conventions in the Geneva Convention, many of the clauses that you will find there, you will find it in the Quran, and you will find it in the Hadith, the prophetic sayings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So therefore, as the honorable guest outlined what should be done to bring about peace in the Holy Land, I agree with him wholeheartedly. And I will add to it one more thing. In order to bring about peace in the Holy Land, we need a one-state solution. A two-state solution in Palestine will never ever work because of various factors, natural resources, religious places of worship. All these things put together, a two-state solution in Jerusalem or Palestine will not work. A one-state solution will work. And I would like to request the audience to give Dr. Solomosi another round of applause, because his talk, his speech has really inspired me, and I truly value, and his principles are in line with my thinking. Thank you very much. And sorry, I'm not showing anybody disrespect, but today being a Friday, I have to go to mosque at 12 o'clock.
Thank you very much, Hafez Said. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know the myth that says if you give an educator 2 minutes, they take 2 hours. Now Hafez is a teacher by profession and he's kept time. So thank you very much, and we hope that the rest of our speakers would do the same. Thank you very much as we invite our, I nearly said historian, but a professor of history of Christianity at the KZN, Prof. Doni, ladies and gentlemen. Let us pagamen again. We are giving Prof 10 minutes. He's asked for 15 minutes, but I know he is a professor, so he'll keep to time. Thank you.
15 minutes. Okay. I'll follow the program. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Sanborano. Yes. Happy. Yes. I will not make a long introduction. I just would like to say that I will not give a response to the beautiful presentation of Solomosi, rather I will echo, because actually I'm very much concerned with that being said in many ways. I will not repeat what he said. I also want to say that my point of view is that it's true, I'm a historian of Christianity. I was in Israel and the West Bank and Bethlehem in 2023, a few months before the 7th of October. So I have a bit of a fresh experience of that part of the world. I also need to say I have a special interest of the issue of the genocide, because during the last 12 years I worked on the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, and I'm a member of the International Association of Genocide Scholars. So I will say something briefly on what we mean by genocide and how it applies to what's happening in Gaza. My main brief was to reflect briefly, in 15 minutes, I cannot do much, on theologically on what's happening that we discuss here. My contribution, and I fully agree with what Solomon said, we need to avoid propaganda and slogans. We need to accept the complexity of the situation. We need to look at the different aspects, this trauma on all sides. I would like to start my short presentation by inviting everybody to honor the victims of all episodes of mass violence and other forms of violence. And I just give a few, but there are many more. First, the 20,000 or more people killed during the time of apartheid and political violence, especially here in Natal, KwaZulu-Natal. The 6 million Jews killed during the Holocaust. The million of Tutsi and Hutu who tried to protect the Tutsi killed during the genocide in only 3 months. 1 million in 3 months in 1994. 1 million in 3 months. Try to think what it is. I also would like to honor the 1,200 Jews killed by Hamas on the 7th of October 23. Each of them is a person, and each of them deserves to be remembered and honored. And of course, I also want to remember and honor the 70,000 Palestinians, the latest figure. Unfortunately, it may still increase in the next few days, including 21,000 children who were victims of what I'm inclined to describe as a genocide. Let's be careful. There's a tendency to call genocide everything. Politicians, journalists abuse the word genocide. Genocide has a very specific meaning according to the definition of 1948 of the United Nations. What is a genocide? It is the intention to exterminate in whole or in part a political, religious, ethnic group as such. As such. In other words, when you want to kill people, not because they've done something, because they are what they are. For example, the Jews, the Tutsi, but in this case, there's strong indication that in Gaza, all those many murders that happened recently, they were in a certain way intentional. You don't kill 21,000 children just like that. What does it say when you kill 21,000 children? And when you starve a whole people, when you displace whole people, that's what I'm one of those who believe that it's accurate to speak of a genocide. But let's wait until the International Court of Justice finalizes the case. It's an issue of international criminal law. Lastly, I think we need to honor the other Palestinians, particularly those in the West Bank. I've been in the West Bank, and it speaks to me. According to the figure I found yesterday, 11,000 Palestinians were killed in the West Bank. You should also remember that. And recently, all the people who killed in Lebanon. Now, I would like to make 2 points here, the little time I have. One is to bring about to your attention important distinction. Secondly, I would like to zoom on the issue of Christian Zionism that Solomuzi mentioned briefly. Important distinction. We should not mix everything. I think we need to carefully distinguish 4 issues, or 4 categories of people, or 4 realities, let's say. The Jews, Judaism, the State of Israel, and Zionism. Those 4 things are not the same. The Jews, there are, for my information, about 15.8 million in the world. It's a group which has long historical roots, and Solomuzi mentioned it. And only 7 people of those Jews are in the State of Israel. And quite a few of those Jews do not support the oppression of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. We had a symposium like this 2 years ago. Ilan Laks, many of you probably know him, a lawyer here in Petermanburg, is one of those. He's a Jew, and he doesn't support at all the oppression of Palestine. And same thing in the United States, in England, in France, etc. I have quite a few Jewish friends. Judaism is something different. It's a religion. It's one of the 3 monotheistic religions. You can accept Judaism and you're not a Jew. You can convert to Judaism. So it does not overlap fully. Then the State of Israel is still something different. The state is a political reality established, we heard it, in 1948. And I don't know if everybody knows here, it's reckoned that 21% of the citizens of the State of Israel, I don't say the Palestinian territories, Gaza and the West Bank. No, the State of Israel, 21% are Palestinian and Arab. So let's not mix everything. Actually, you have actually Palestinians who are actually citizens of the state. And now, I like the conclusion of Solomuzi and our brother from representing Islam. If, or maybe when, there will be a peaceful way of combining the histories, memories, trauma on both sides, we could have a peaceful state of Israel. It's not impossible. It's not the case now. Not the case now. No, it's the opposite actually. It's the opposite to peace. It's war. But lastly, Zionism is actually the problem. So we need to distinguish Jews, Judaism, Israel, and Zionism. It's an ideology claiming that the Jews have a right to a homeland, and that implies the exclusion of the others. And that's a problem. If it was inclusive, it would be fine. It doesn't fine because it's exclusive. So Zionism, as mentioned by Solomuzi, goes back, and you're perfectly right, to the late 19th century, ironically in Ukraine, where after pogroms, where anti-Semitism is a shameful reality from the time immemorial, especially in the Middle Ages and the early modern period. So there has been anti-Semitism in what was then Russia, and then as a response, you have the Zionist movement, which then expanded and is a key component of what happened before and after 1948 in what is today the state of Israel. So let's not mix everything. If you want to blame people or to be scandalized, let's see exactly what we talk about. Now I would like to, the little time that is left, say something about Christian Zionism. I must be honest, I've studied history of Christianity all my life, even before I joined the university. I was interested. And it's not so long ago that I heard about Christian Zionism, because I'm a Catholic and I'm very close to the Reform and Lutheran tradition in Anglican, and it was not part of my work until recently. It's actually when I went to Israel and I met Nick Kerr, who is here, and I know his book, which I recommend. It's called Wound and Heal. That I discovered that in a strange way, there's a group of people who claim to be Christian and are Zionists at the same time. It seems a bit unbelievable. It's very strange. But still, and unfortunately, they are extremely influential politically in the United States, and explains a lot the complicity between the US and the right-wing wing, the extremist wing in Israel today. Now, where did that come from? It's actually historically not that old. It goes back to the 19th century only. So it's like a recent product for the historian like me. It's much more recent, for example, Martin Luther and John Calvin. Now, there's a former Irish Anglican priest called John Nelson Darby, in the last third of the 19th century. He developed, I don't know, it's a speculation. He developed this idea that in history there are 7 periods which are called dispensations. And this movement is called dispensationalism, based not on the whole Bible, but on one small part of the Bible, which is the book of Revelation, chapter 20. And that's a problem which I will discuss in a moment. It's extremely selective. It takes one little part, done a fundamentalist, literalist interpretation of this little part, which speaks of 1,000 years, you may know it. And is the idea that there are different moments, and this, I don't go into those details, it is some people call of pre-millennialism and post-millennialism. Here I speak of the pre-millennialism. Before those 2,000 years, Satan will triumph, then Jesus, Satan comes back and eventually establishes a kingdom. That's roughly what it is. Christian Zionism is to follow the same pattern. If you like, Christian Zionism is a component or part of dispensationalism. They follow the same pattern. They say, but with an important change, they distinguish 7 periods, 7 dispensation. Let's leave out the first 5. The number 6 is the time of the church. And the number 7, guess what it is? The political victory of Israel, the state of Israel. The state of Israel. So that's a strange thing, that a pure political reality is integrated into a religious framework. That was Christian Zionism. No, I don't have much time because I was given 15 minutes. I will just make one argument, which I would maybe may be added to those of our friend Solomuzi, is to start a conversation similar to the one we had in the 80s about is apartheid a heresy. You may remember, those who are old enough to remember the World Alliance of Reformed Churches, the Lutheran World Federation declared apartheid a heresy. You cannot be Christian and support apartheid. No, it doesn't work like that. You choose one of the two. You cannot have both. My point, we should have a similar conversation about Christian Zionism. Fine if you want to follow Derby, etc., etc. But don't claim to be Christian. There's nothing to do with Christianity. Why? I think for 2 reasons. The first reason is that it's true that in the what we call the Old Testament, we read Christian Old Testament, there are many passages where you see that Israel is fighting enemies. So there's a certain degree of exclusivity in the Old Testament. Although not the Old Testament, I don't go into detail. But in the New Testament, it's the opposite. The New Testament, Jesus was inclusive, not exclusive. From A to Z, from the first day to the last. It did not exclude anybody, on the opposite. And I will give a few texts. And so that's quite important. The second thing is that in the same line, Jesus never proclaimed a political kingdom like, for example, the state of Israel. Not at all. He distinguished carefully the two. The kingdom of God that Jesus speaks about is not a certain political reality today, like in the state of Israel. So my argument is that this Christian Zionism actually ignores, except this text of Revelation 20, and another one, the first letter to the Thessalonians. I don't have the time to go into that, the so-called rapture. So it's a highly selective reading of the New Testament when you ignore 99% and take 1%. And that 1% you have a fundamentalist reading of it. So yeah, that's Christian Zionism. The second reason for opening a conversation on the possible heretical character of Christian Zionism is the fact that those people have absolutely no empathy for the suffering of the Palestinian people. No empathy. It's like it doesn't matter. They rightly, as somebody said, it's true they are traumatized. It's true that anti-Semitism should be rejected, absolutely. But it's not a reason for ignoring equally enormous suffering of the Palestinians. That's not Christian. A Christian should have empathy, compassion, love for everybody, and not only some. So I think that's my argument that Christian Zionism is not should be called Christian Zionism, is not Christian Zionism in a way. And I will conclude by reading quickly then a certain number of small text to show, to affirm what I say. Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. Matthew 22. My kingdom is not of this world. John 18. Destroy this temple, and in 3 days it will raise it up. John 2. The parable of the Good Samaritan. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. Matthew 25. The Council of Jerusalem. Listen to this. God did not discriminate between us and them. Gentiles. And another important one in the Galatians, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave or free, there is neither male nor female. This one is also interesting. Not all who are descended from Israel belong to Israel. This is in Romans. And lastly, God, Christ is our peace, who has made the two groups, the Jews and the Gentiles, one, and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility. So I think Christian Zionism just ignore those texts completely. There's no time for those texts, and that's a problem. Thank you.
I really was not expecting that. I appreciate it, Prof. It's a true professor, and I really thank you, Prof. Denis. You kept time. In actual fact, 5 minutes before I could actually give it to the other speaker. Now, eminent leaders, please allow us with the last speaker who would be replacing Pastor Norman, Pastor Stanley Norman. We are inviting our very own Bishop Muyazi from Durban. I know most people know him, Lapima Poising. Yeah, he's Kumsakon. You know, if you see the premier, surely you'll see that face. And he's famously known as T.D. Jakes. So as you can see, we are in America. Thank you. I know Bishop will only take 5 minutes. Thank you. So Baba, again, Sasuma Professor Kumalo, Sizogela immediately after him, Baba Atati Podium.
Hey. Good day, everybody. Let me stand on the established protocol. I'm really feel honored to be standing here. I thought I'll get you. I've been told I need to respond to the issue of Israel being the chosen nation of God. It's I knew that Professor Kumano is very interested in this. No, he just adjusted his glasses. He wants to hear exactly. I will disappoint you. I will call another a day for a cup of coffee. Because this one is very important. Now, my response on this question, are they the chosen nation of God? Our father, Abraham, God promised him that he will make a holy nation from his descendants. That's what he promised. And we are all, because he said, all the nations coming from Abraham, they are his people. And in Exodus chapter 19, I'll read this one. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all people. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. If you underline the word obey, obey, do as I've instructed you, do as I've commanded you. Now, I'm coming from military. In the military, we know that the commander's wish, it's instruction. It's a command. The commander, when he says, I wish to do 1, 2, 3, automatically, to me as a subordinate, it's a command. Now, if you don't obey the command, you are disobeying, and you can be charged. And during the war time, you are killed for disobeying. Now, my point is, we're going to discuss that, Professor Kumano, on coffee, okay, when we're taking coffee. Mama, my take in this, Israel, as God chose them, because God chooses a person to send the message to other people. He chooses one person to address the issues. But if the person does not go according to his plan, God withdraws his favor. That's my understanding. He withdraws his favor and he leaves you alone. Then you do things on your own and God is no longer there. So Israel, when they left Egypt, there's so many times where they've turned against God. And they went on their own. They actually left God and did their own thing. Now, I don't believe that they are still a chosen nation. Maybe originally they were, because God wanted to use them to send the message to other nations. But they turned against Him by obeying other gods, and God left them. And when God leaves you, you're going to start your own life that is not pleasing to God. Amen. And by so doing, you use your mind, you use all these things that we are seeing manifesting in the lives of the Israelites. Another day for coffee. Professor Kumar, thank you very much.
Conversions do happen. Babu Mbuyazi said that I was going to be disappointed. In fact, I'm very much encouraged. The spirit still works. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you so much, Babu Mbuyazi. Thank you to our guest speaker, to Professor Denise, and to everybody who's been here. Let's go for it now, friends. I think we are at a point where so much has been said and shared with us, and we need to engage with these issues at the moment. And the only thing that I'm disappointed on is that we actually we don't have the voice, some of those voices at KZNCC that are usually vociferous about God being on the side of Israel. Now, that's my only disappointment, because Babu Mbuyazi is converted. I wanted those who not be touched by the Spirit, who are still believing in that very much, especially today, because we have Umshengu. I was not going to be responding to this, and all. I'm just going to be pointing at him to respond to this and talk to that. But let's go for it. You've had an input, very, very detailed input from Ubab Mabuza, and then you also had Professor Denise, and then you've had Babu Mbuyazi. Any other questions? It looks like the ride and the Tuesday meetings of KZNCC in the mornings are going to be much more easier now, going forward. Am I right or am I not? Right? Correct on that one. Any questions or comments? Yes. We've got two hands there. Can we just take four? Okay, three. Fourth one. Okay, let's take these three. Okay, right at the back there.
Thank you. I'm really grateful to be in this space. I didn't know what was happening here. I was invited in the last 3 minutes yesterday, and I came today, and I'm really happy to be in this space. But at the same time, I felt as if I was left alone. I felt as if I was rejected. I was crying in this place because of what I heard. It reminded me of my case. We are talking about Palestine, aren't we? We are talking about the death of Palestinians. We are talking about numbers of people who have died, but there are people in my country. 20 million have died. 3 decades. And no one mentioned it in this place. I was crying at this place because I could hear everything that person are going through. That's what my country is going through. But no one in this place even mentioned my country. But it's in Africa. Why will you go overseas, living in a country right next door here, and people are dying for 3 decades? I was crying. Can someone imagine what is my country? No one knows. Is there anyone that can imagine what is my country? DRC. I heard there they were mentioning people that died genocide. Professor, I was waiting for him to mention my country. He mentioned everywhere, he even mentioned the Tutsis, but my country, silence. I know that there are people in this place. People in this place that don't think. Can anyone tell me any Palestine that you know? But if I ask everyone here, do you know Congolese? Everyone here know Congolese. Why is my country being left over? Why are we going far? When there are people dying, they've started dying in 1994 up until today. In every 4 minutes, there are women are being raped. For every 4 minutes, there are women that are being raped.
Thank you, sir. We've had you. Thank you. Okay, another one.
No, thank you very much. I would like to really thank and just greet everyone and go by the protocol that has already been established. My name is Bonelo Ngubane and I'm from the YMCA. Special greetings to our National General Secretary, Reverend Solomosi. Basically, my input is just a comment really to say that I'm very much happy with the presentations that have been made, because for the longest of time the church has been relegated to a position of being a bystander in whatever that is happening both in the country and in the global space. So if we see that the people and the clergymen are now being part and parcel of everything that is happening, and they are really shaping the discourse into what should really happen, is really